I would say there's at least 3 good reasons why they're doing what they're doing. One would be we have a massive debt crisis. Our deficit's like $2 trillion a year, and we got to pay for that somehow. 2 is from a national security standpoint, we don't make anything. In a wartime environment, your factories that make things, that make cars, make tanks. The ones that make commercial ships make Navy ships, etc. So that's probably valid. Manufacturing jobs is a third one. Like the Middle America, lost tons of jobs. A lot of these towns have become kind of like ghost towns from fentanyl crisis and opioid crisis, and there's just less work available to people. So those are all valid points. And then the fourth one, I guess, is tariffs give you good negotiating leverage and get these guys to drop their barriers. If you put the barriers up and get them to drop their barriers. So I'm not saying I agree with any of it. I'm just saying, okay, make sure you understand their case before you attack.
Welcome to the Founders in Arms podcast with me, Immad, Akhund, co-founder and CEO of Mercury.
And I'm Raj Suri, co-founder of Lima and Tribe. And today we're excited to welcome Ryan Petersen, co-founder and CEO of Flexport. Welcome, Ryan.
Yeah. This is being recorded on Wednesday, so, by the time we release this, who knows what the situation would be, but we just had...
Wednesday, April 9th.
Yeah, April 9th. So we just had 104% tariffs on China go live. China's reciprocated with 84% tariffs on American goods. I guess the rest of the reciprocal tariffs also went live, right? So we had
Canada went live.
Canada has been live. I think all of them are live. I think the Vietnam one.
Canada's been live for a while.
Yeah.
There were new tariffs that put into place, right, recently for Canada? Like Carney just announced that there's some new tariffs going in place.
No, that's Canada putting tariffs on the U.S., yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so Ryan, what is it like running Flexport right now? Like what's happening on the ground?
We're back in wartime mode, and we've been there a bunch of times over the last 10 years. Those of us at Flexport kind of thrive on it. That was why we work here, why we work in this industry. But no one's celebrating. It's a mess. I mean, wartime is definitely not great. It's really tough for our customers. We had some customers going through some
I was actually wondering, what happens with all this inventory that's just on a boat, right? It's going to land and might be completely unprofitable, right? How does that
so the inventory,
work?
It's less about the inventory on the boat. The way that they set the rules up was if it departed, it's based on the departure date of the ship.
Okay.
So if it was already on a ship, it's good. You're good. It was actually midnight to night, so there was a mad scramble to get everything out, both boats and planes. But if you placed orders, usually you place an order 90 days later it ships or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely a backlog of inventory there that was planned and ordered in a world where these tariffs weren't there. So yeah, it's going to be kind of ugly for a lot of companies.
Are there a lot of canceled orders happening, that you see? People are sending, yeah?
We're seeing a lot of that, a lot of canceled POs, and a lot of renegotiations of terms. So I was just talking with a customer this morning who sells products to Costco and fighting with Costco to make sure that they accept the higher tariffs on their, and so, yeah, I think different companies will have different rates of success with that. It's a really tough place because you either let your company die or let your reputation suffer with your retailer. And one of those is a lot better than the other. So you gotta be hardcore in this environment.
But it's also messy because you don't know what the kind of steady state is, right? You don't know what to plan for. Do you have to plan for 104%? Do you have to plan for 50%, 30%, 10%?
Might go up a lot. Might go down.
You think it can go higher than this?
Sure.
At this rate of
maybe
China,
by the time we air the show.
Exactly, yeah, the next 24 hours, yeah. At this rate of 100%, this is huge levels. You're doubling the cost of something you're buying from China. That's going to
Don't forget, by the way, Raj, it's 104% on top of the 25% for a lot of categories that Trump put in his first term. So it's like a sofa from China is 129% right now.
129%, yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, but that's a good point. We're talking, doubling the cost and more, right, from something you're buying from China. And did this just block all trade? If this stays in place for 12 months, is it basically going to be almost de minimis trade between U.S. and China at these, what's going to actually be traded at 100+%?
I don't know. We've got to see how some of this plays through the math. And, how often you update your iPhone right now? You buy one every cycle like me? Or you wait every 2 years or something? How much of a nerd are you?
Nowadays, I
every
buy
two because
every year. Yeah.
Every year.
feel like
so me too.
Really?
But there are a lot
I
of
feel
people
like they
who already
break things
buy,
every now and then. So.
there's a lot of people who only buy every other year, every 5. I got some employee of mine recently. I was like, what is this iPhone 12 you're using?
Yeah.
You're going to see more people like that, if the iPhone's going to cost X dollars more, 500 more, something like that. We'll see. I haven't seen what Apple's doing with their pricing yet. But that's going to slow down the number of units sold. And the iPhone's a super in-demand product that everybody wants, but a lot of stuff is less, most stuff doesn't have their power over consumers. So that's the big fallout that we're going to find out. And then, are there substitutes? Like a lot of electronics has to be made in Shenzhen still. There's not other or some part of China. There's not. They just have real lock on that ecosystem and they do a better job manufacturing stuff. So how much do we need those products and stuff that can move? Largely has moved already. Even the 25% duty was enough for apparel companies and a lot of stuff to shift.
What's stopping China shipping stuff to Vietnam or Mexico for it to then be shipped into America? Like presumably it's such a high tariff that like there's a big incentive to anything that can bypass it, right?
Well, it's about where the goods are produced. So you have to do what's called a substantial transformation of the goods. And so you can import components.
But how can they
to
tell?
Vietnam
Like, are people opening the stuff up and saying like, "Oh, this was a substantial"? Like, it seems like this would be very hard to police.
It is a felony, so you go to jail if you get caught doing this stuff. It is hard to police, and people should know there's a 10% whistleblower reward if you turn somebody in who's committing customs fraud.
You're trying to get them in trouble, Peter.
It might be a good way to make money. Not gonna be Flexport. We're gonna be the trusted advisor helping you avoid. We're kind of like almost like your lawyer. You can come talk to us, and we'll help you with your problems and help you avoid fraud and don't do bad things. But
have you had to update all your software to like measure all this stuff? Like, are you the one making the payments to customs, or
in some cases, in some cases, we are the ones that are helping them classify, store the classification codes and then therefore the duty rates and define how much they owe. Some cases we transmit the money. In some cases we actually front them the money. We have a lending product where we lend money for customs duties.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice part of our business. And we've been making furious updates. Like our customs tech team spent the last year automating manual work, and they made so much progress, and they were like, have this roadmap that by the end of the year, something in the high 90% of the work is going to be fully hands off the wheel, and now we're like, it's not that important compared to visualizing the data, update the reports, show trends over time. I mean, you got to kind of we did a whole bunch of replanning exercises in the last week or two around this.
I guess what's your take on how this moves forward? Right? Is it like China and the U.S. are just like going to keep upping the ante? Do you think they'll come to a settlement? Like, how does this play out in the next few weeks?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't want to pretend that I have the answers. I have a few insights. So I did talk to a cabinet secretary, not involved in trade, but another one. And what he told me was that, this was about 10 days ago, and he said that Liberation Day, April 2nd, would be the start and not the end of the process of negotiations. And so that, therefore, but by the way, it could mean the start and then it escalates, which is what we've seen with China and some other countries, or it could be the start and then we negotiate things back down. I think there's going to be more of that. I think that we want to, this stuff's too important. It's been too crazy for the equity markets. The bond market's going the wrong direction right now from what Trump wants to achieve. And so it's just like too fundamental to the economy. And it can't be that this administration just believes in central planning of our economy. Like that is crazy. I mean, the government can set some rules and guide some things in the direction they want, but like you can't. This is like great leap forward stuff. Like during the 1950s, Mao had everybody in China. They said they needed iron production and steel production, so they had every person in China make their own backyard furnace, literally in their backyard to produce iron. Chopped down all the trees in the country, and then it turned out the iron was useless. Like, so, we can't be doing this kind of top-down planning. The Soviets also proved that this stuff is idiotic, so.
Yeah, so I've seen those memes about we're becoming a Maoist, country, kind of become like an autarky.
I did really love that AI video with like a bunch of Americans like in a sewing factory. It was just hilarious image. And I guess everyone's like, oh, we can build factories that are automated, but this stuff takes years, right? Like
it takes years.
This is such a
I know at least two people who were in the middle of building out factories and paused their work because
why?
The machines they were buying were from Germany and were just like 20% more expensive, and they were just like needing more financing and capital and make the ROI case. The components were going to be coming from other countries. You saw Haas Automation, which is a major seller of machine tools and automation. They're seeing less demand. You're going to set up a factory in another country for anything export oriented. If the U.S. company has to pay duties on the import and other countries don't,
because if you're reselling it outward, then it even gets worse because of the tariffs from all the other countries hitting the U.S. makes it even worse.
And the one thing we know from Asia is there's a great book that I recommend to everybody, especially now, is called How Asia Works. And it's a book about the industrialization, the industrial policies that allowed some of these Asian tiger economies to win, and why some of the other ones didn't become industrialized, Malaysia, et cetera. And the main difference was their emphasis on exports. That, like in Malaysia also built a domestic champion for autos. They have, I forget the name of the company. It was a Malaysian car company you've never heard of because they don't export. But they protected it. They didn't allow imports, became the dominant player in Malaysia. But all they did was hurt the people in Malaysia. They made them buy inferior cars that cost more and didn't win. Whereas Korea and Japan obviously built and now China, BYD, and they've built these dynamic, amazing car companies, and it was all because exports are the proving ground. It's how you demonstrate that, in fact, your companies are competitive, your products are awesome. If nobody wants to buy it internationally, you don't have a good product in that world. And so it's kind of like Amazon strategy of externalizing their internal products.
Yeah.
If nobody buys Amazon customer service software, which they kind of, I think, haven't succeeded in that one, it's a pretty good indicator that, hey, maybe we either need to make our customer service software that our reps use better, or we should just buy Zendesk, use Zendesk, if nobody wants our stuff. It's a similar concept applied on the global, macro scale. And so if we're going to punish our exporters, then it's just failing at industrialization 101.
It just seems like even if you believe in trying to improve the trade surplus or the trade deficit and reindustrialize, there's got to be a better way to do it rather than this kind of hammer off a broad tariff approach.
And the simplest thing would be give us a year's notice so we can start to plan around this stuff. You do it overnight. I got to shut down my factory line. I don't have the local suppliers ready to do this. Nobody's ready. So
I mean, there's this madman theory of negotiation, but I don't know if that's
you know what? One thing he's got himself a great negotiating position. Everybody needs to come to the table right now and negotiate some deals. So,
one question, Ryan, but you mentioned the auto stuff. It was very interesting. Trump, I think yesterday, was complaining about no one's taking our cars, and they have these regulations where you drop a bowling ball from 20 feet, and if it makes a dent on a car, they don't take it. Is that true? Is there actually really tough? Is it tough for our car companies to export to other countries?
I don't know enough about those ones. That's interesting. I didn't see that bowling ball. I mean, cars kind of suck compared to some of these countries. So other than Tesla, Tesla cars are amazing. I think Tesla should be, but I think Tesla's mostly built local factories in their markets where they sell rather than try to export them from the U.S. But yeah, until you make a competitive product, it's hard to make that case. Where you do see this for sure, it's true, is in ag. From my perspective, okay, my perspective. Europeans have banned genetically modified foods. So American corn, you can't sell it in Europe. All the corn and everything's genetically modified in the United States. In order, oddly enough, and most people don't know this, they genetically modify it so that it has a natural fertilizer built in, a natural pesticide built in. But it's an enzyme that the human body cannot digest, so it's not harmful to humans.
No, that's smart.
Yeah, and then they don't need to apply pesticides to the fields, and it's a big win for the environment. But Europe has banned this on environmental grounds, on health grounds, on other things that this administration argues is non-scientific, although we haven't asked RFK his
I think
opinion.
people don't realize this, but agriculture in Europe is seen as a national security interest, right? They're still
fair enough,
scared after the world wars.
Fair enough. And also, who wants to, you go to France, you want to see some nice farms in the countryside or whatever. I don't want that to all go away. So these issues are complex, but yes, there are barriers for U.S. products. I don't know enough about the auto one. Having driven American cars, other than the Tesla, I just think you work on your quality first. But
yeah, I mean, in the U.S. we have this obsession with our auto industry, right? Like, I mean, we're doing great on software and services, and we have trade surpluses, with other countries, and like, AI is a big area for us. But we're obsessed with like bringing back the 50s for the auto industry.
The other auto barrier, I forgot. I saw this great tweet from Joe Wiesenthal from the Odd Lots podcast yesterday. He said, Europe has this non-tariff barrier to trade to autos. Their roads are just not wide enough for a F-150 to fit down. This is totally unfair.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I think that, I guess, folks are still interesting conversation around kind of services, right? Like there's this, obviously, like all these tariffs are about like goods and they're ignoring services. But at the same time, when Meta makes a bunch of money in Europe, they do it through their Irish subsidiary, right? They don't necessarily like bring the profits to the US entity. So, like, how would a smart policy take like services into account?
Oh, yeah, I haven't thought enough about that, but I do think there's something there, that needs a modern economy, services, software products, all these other things. If you're not counting that in the trade flows, then something's missing. But yeah, it's a good point. It's creating these shell companies that the profits may not flow back. One thing that Trump did in his first term was change the corporate taxation rate for those profits, so that a lot of them did come back, where before it was just crazy to bring it back and all this money was sitting offshore. So there's probably something there of just like make less incentive to hide the money offshore. But I mean, our best companies are not physical goods companies, and that maybe it's a problem. I see their point. One principle that I have in life is never get in an argument with anyone unless you feel like you can make their argument better than they can. Mm-hmm. And so you got to understand the other side's point of view. And I've tried to do that here, is just like really, and they have some valid points. They're certainly addressing some fundamental problems that are real. And I think there's like, if you categorize it, I would say there's at least 3 good reasons why they're doing what they're doing. One would be we have a massive debt crisis. Our deficit's like $2 trillion a year, and we got to pay for that somehow. And so tariffs generate a lot of revenue, and like, they're trying to offset income taxes. It's valid. Like there's real revenue there. 2 is from a national security standpoint, we don't make anything in a wartime environment. Your factories that make things, that make cars, make tanks, the ones that make commercial ships make Navy ships, et cetera. So that's probably valid. Manufacturing jobs is a third one. Like the middle America, like lost tons of jobs. A lot of these towns have become kind of like ghost towns from, fentanyl crisis and opioid crisis, and there's just less work available to people. So those are all valid points. And then the fourth one, I guess, is tariffs give you good negotiating leverage and get these guys to drop their barriers.
You want things to change.
If you put the barriers up and get them to drop their barriers.
There is a fifth one.
By the way, I'm not saying I agree with any of it. I'm just saying, okay, make sure you understand their case before you attack.
There's a fifth one that's like kind of, it's important, but like hard to understand, which is that like this whole situation where America has a very long running trade deficit against the rest of the world is a bit of an unnatural situation. And it only happens because America has the reserve currency. So all of this money that's like how it's supposed to happen between two countries, like if you have a trade surplus against it, you get a bunch of their currency and then you have to do something with it. And normally you sell it or buy their goods, and like it tends to equalize. But with America, it doesn't happen because everyone just like, it's like, oh, let me just keep accumulating USD assets or holding the dollars.
And you can see it, like there's definitely, like look at Vietnam, my favorite currency in the world, the Vietnamese dong is going down over the last few years, even as they've had like this incredible manufacturing boom and so many dollars are flowing in. Like it doesn't add up. Like your currency should appreciate. So there's definitely some validity to this, to these points around currency, whether you call it manipulation or just like, hey, it's our privilege as the reserve currency. It also kind of
this is actually a common problem with reserve currencies, that like you end up having these deficits, and then you end up actually becomes so cheap for you to have debt that you accumulate more and more debt. And this has happened like over many
And your
reserve
people
currency
become,
situations.
do they always become rich and lazy and hang out and just want to be served?
Well, the
by
problem is
some,
it's like not necessarily a sustainable situation. Like
Yeah.
eventually, like the debt, like we got more and more debt in America, and then suddenly interest rates go up, and now like debt is, interest
I
rate
think
payments
that's, I think
crowding everything.
underlying that, I think that's the piece that I agree with is like, hey, there's a lot of stuff here that wasn't sustainable in the way that things were working and needed some change. But now I'm feeling like, hey, maybe kicking the can down the road was better, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be a better way to, like, even if they were like, okay, in 1 year we're going to do it, right? Like, there's got to be a better way to implement this. This is it's such
the
a
counter argument
crazy
is that
method.
like the CHIPS Act shows the better way to like solve a lot of these problems, right? Like you're actually selectively onshoring strategic industries. You're creating jobs. You're picking and choosing which industries are you want to that were really important for our national security and like give us the ability to build. Isn't that like the surgical
And that's
approach
also the way
versus
China
blunt
does it,
instrument?
right? Like China's like, we need EVs, and then they went all in on EVs. It's actually, they also do plan an industrial kind of process.
Yeah, but what's the argument against the CHIPS Act type of strategy? I mean, and the China strategy. Isn't that like, wasn't that the consensus before this? We went this direction, and this is the way we should do
I
it?
don't know enough about the CHIPS Act to say whether it was anything or just like a subsidy for Intel or something. I don't know. It's like what chips are getting produced as a result of it. It'd be interesting. Grok makes their chips in America, not Elon, not XAI's Grok, but the
The Q.
original Grok,
Yeah.
with a Q,
Yeah.
makes their chips in upstate New York. Little known fact, and they should be they get way more attention and credit for it. They're making amazing.
Do they have their own foundry, or they're using like
They're using Global Foundries.
global foundries? Yeah.
Well,
So they don't have
TSMC
like
just stood up their factory in Arizona, right? Like that's actively producing,
Yep.
chips. Seems like that's the right strategies. Like we're picking an industry, we're giving them subsidies, some incentives to come and produce here. We help them get everything out of the way,
And importantly, find ways to incentivize exports. Make sure that the stuff that they make is actually globally competitive. If we're just putting barriers up and, you can make a big company just only selling to Americans, but you're actually, if the product's inferior and Americans are paying more for this thing, nobody else would buy it, then you're actually just hurting Americans rather than, generating
So
surplus.
Ryan, what advice are you giving your customers, right? Like if someone is especially if they're like in low margin business that's like importing from China, like what is their strategy right now?
Well, the first advice is in any crisis is to stay calm. Everybody will rally around the calmest person in the room. So, all your employees are looking at you and looking at me too. Like you can't be freaking out. You don't make good decisions in that headspace anyways. I do think, wait and see is the right plan. We've seen a lot of customers pause their bookings of ocean freight and air freight coming from China. There was a big surge last week to get out before this deadline, but now that it's here, there's a big pause. There's a pause. A lot of companies are saying, hey, we saw this coming for months. Anybody with a brain knew there was going to be tariffs last week, and they imported a lot. So they well-stocked, they have inventory for the most part, and they're saying, hey, let's take a pause, sell through that inventory and figure out, did the tariffs come back down from here? I do think there's likely to be some deals cut. The White House is very much signaling that right now. And so don't overreact. We have a tendency as a species to get ourselves really worked up in a kind of reflexive mimetic loop with other people who are all freaking out together. And so like, gotta stay calm here and figure out, be patient. Definitely, you're already seeing people raise their prices. They don't need that advice from me, but you're seeing around 5% price increase from our customers in terms of the ones that are e-com, and you can see their prices on their website. And so we're going to find out. And I don't know if that's enough. It'll depend on their margins, and these tariffs are probably higher. I suspect that data point was from last Friday, so I haven't rerun it yet. But I suspect you're going to see even higher prices than that. 104% tariff. We only were sure about that yesterday. So
I don't know how that translates to 5%.
Well, you'd have to have like what is it? I forget what the math works out to. I think you need a 20x profit margin. So 3x is a more normal, like from your COGS to what you sell the thing for. And so you're going to need to raise your prices 33%, I think is what the math would say. And then it's a big, what happens, when you raise your price 33%, the principles that we're operating on here at Flexport, I mean, this is a crisis for us. Like if our customers are in crisis and their bookings are slowing down, this is going to be rough sailing for us. And Flexport's revenue is P times Q, right? And so both of these are likely to go down at the same time. The price of freight's going to come down because
supply will
there's
go
less
down,
demand, supply and demand. So volumes come down, price comes down. That's part of why you get these cycles in our industry. So we're operating on like sort of 4 core principles right now. One is preserve cash. We got to eliminate waste everywhere we can. 2 is be decisive. Make some you can make a decision, just get it done quickly. 3rd is take market share. Prices are falling. We got to be the place that everyone knows. Come to Flexport. Be the place that's in front of customers. Embrace the customer. Go take and seize the opportunity. If we're better at responding to a crisis than the competition, will take market share. And then the last is, I think we had this window to be a hero, be the hero of this crisis on behalf of our customers. Part of why I'm trying to be, do podcasts and get in front of people and tell the story and make sure Flexport's standing out here. There's all kinds of ways for us to bend over backwards and do extraordinary things. So we're converting a bunch of our warehouses to foreign trade zones where people can store goods and defer the duty. You only pay the duty when it leaves the foreign trade zone, not when it comes in.
In the U.S.?
Yeah.
Well, really?
In the U.S. And so there's all kinds of things like this that we're creating programs, refund programs to get duties back from customs. If you export
they do this
something
in China, right? Where there's like a foreign trade zone and like there's no tariff coming in and all the intermediate stuff doesn't get tariffed and then they can leave. maybe you could do that in the US as well.
Yeah, similar concept. So those are our principles that we're operating on right now. And like a big.
Do you feel like the first one and the third one contradict? Like you're trying to cut costs, but you're trying to gain market share. Like often, like to gain market share, you have to like invest.
So that you can do the third. You got to preserve cash and cut costs so that you can afford to go take market share, pass through the falling prices, et cetera. So they're kind of one is required in order to do the other.
Right. I've been really impressed by how you've really taken on this almost like national leader in the supply chain and trade. I've known you for a long time. Like we were one of your early customers in my last company, and so it's been really impressive to see how you've become this like national leader in trade policy. I think famously you went over to the Los Angeles ports, right? And you've done a bunch of very interesting thought pieces on like trade and then how we can be better. Just wonder what advice you would have for other founders who could take on that for their industries, because founders get very deep in the industries to become experts. Immad was not born a leader in banking, but he's
he's been gaming when I met him. So
yeah. So what advice would you have for like new founders, like how to become like a leader, like a very public thought leader?
Well, everybody wants to make their company more famous, hopefully for the right reasons, to make it more successful, not for your personal ego. And the number one thing that I advise people on that is remember that no one cares about you.
Mm-hmm.
The sooner you get this lesson in your life, the better you'll be. No one cares at all about you.
Yep.
They care about themselves. They care about trends that are happening in the world, and they care about you to the extent that you can either help them or provide insight into that trend or an example of it, et cetera. And so stop pitching yourself in why you're so great. Self-promotion is totally dead in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The internet killed it. It's too, and anyone can go on LinkedIn and say, I'm the freaking best. And it's free. So it doesn't work. It used to work. Like on television, you could promote yourself and say, I'm the champagne of beers or whatever. And people would believe it and buy Miller High Life. But that stuff doesn't work in the modern world because it's free. Anybody can do it. So you have to be able to provide insight, thought leadership. And so I think for a startup, it's figuring out what are the trends? What do people care about? What do they care about whether or not you exist that you can be an example of?
I love that.
And then make sure you're putting out lots of good content about that. That people are then in. If you've done a good job picking the trend, they will be interested.
Do you think marketing? I'm going to call them marketing stunts, but maybe that's underdoing it. But it's not like when you do that LA thing. I think you got a boat and you were it's kind of like a stunty kind of thing to do. Do you think that stuff works?
To be honest, it genuinely was not a stunt. I was the reason I got the boat was I was trying to get information out of this guy
Okay.
And the best way to get information out of somebody is to trap them on a boat where they can't leave. And you just said they're supposed to talk to you for a couple hours. So I invited this dude to it, runs a trucking company at the port to come on a boat tour with me, and he agreed and said I spent 2 hours asking him questions and learning how it all works. So, but I'm not anti-marketing stunt by any means. Those are some way to stand out. The other interesting insight from a marketing standpoint, I'm a huge fan of Rory Sutherland. I don't know if you guys know Rory. You should try to get him on the pod. He's the man. He's the head of, or he's the vice chairman of Ogilvy UK, the ad agency. He's a legend. He's a hilarious guy. And he wrote this book called Alchemy. And Alchemy it's about the power of irrational ideas and the idea that, we're all trained to be logical, like our whole school system, our companies promote people who are logical, like we're using math all the time and pursuing things that make sense. And therefore, there's no arb in any of that stuff because if someone else has already thought of it, because everyone else is logical.
Yeah.
The only ideas that are going to actually work, the only ideas that will really stand out and work are the crazy ones. Now, most crazy ideas are bad. So you're like, this intersection of like crazy and good, that quadrant is where all of the arb in life comes from. And so
that's interesting.
To the extent that marketing...
I kind of think about it as like and like startup people are kind of tuned to this is like the low probability, high ROI thing. It's like, if you really believe something has like a slightly higher probability and everyone else is like, oh, it's like, if it's less than 1%, you're like,
all right, this is like Flexport airplane. I sent 500 of these to like some big air shippers, and we had like a 15% conversion rate. I mean, these are $1 million accounts, multi-million-dollar accounts off a freaking toy like airplane that I sent.
Oh, literally the toy. I thought you were sending actual planes.
No, I mailed them. I mailed them this thing, and it's just like, like any rationally finance guy would be like, why are we sending toy airplanes to these companies? What are you doing, Ryan? And I'm like, well, let's see.
Yep, that's cool. Wow. Yeah, we used to send AirPods or like some kind of something that was useful that we thought was useful, right? And actually worked really well. Sending gifts to like random enterprise customers.
It can work, yeah.
Actually worked, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff is logical. My point is, like, the more logical and obvious it is, the less likely it is to work because someone else probably also sent them some AirPods. Like, no one else is sending them a toy Flexport airplane, that's for sure. Although in our industry, people send a DHL airplane or something, so.
Because we were selling to restaurants, like restaurants are super low tech. Probably no one was actually sending them AirPods.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that could work pretty well. One question I have is just about like, so you've built this great presence. Like, did that also give you access to like key people? You sound like you're working with the government on things. Is that part of your strategy as well?
There's an extent of that. Until recently, I haven't had even though it's the tariff stuff, like no one cares what I think. Like they have their own tariff policy. Like, and obviously I'm selling my own book. Tariffs are very bad for my business. So why should, they're not going to listen to me and my customers. They know these things. But there's angles now, like where people may listen to me. And for example, this ship provision where the Chinese ships are going to have to pay a big fee. I did like a big tweet storm about that this week. And that I'm told got circulated around the White House and other places. And then they announced the next day that they may change the way that it's done. So hopefully I can be a voice for some reason. And it's a good sign if they're listening to people who are in the game, in the arena. Yeah, but it's not necessarily the stated. Over the last decade, I haven't had a lot of issues where I'm like, I really need the government to do this differently. Like we're different than I think a lot of startups are kind of. A lot of real world startups are sort of test cases of, should this be legal? Should you be allowed to run an unlicensed hotel in your living room or not? And like they have probably more active need for lobbying and changing rules and communicating with the government. We're like, government's going to secure the border, collect customs duties, have all kinds of safety regulations about what shipping, like all that stuff is good. Like we'll just comply with every single rule in every country in the world. We're not a test case. So it's a little bit different.
There's been a lot of talk about the Jones Act recently. Do you have any opinions on that one?
Has there?
I did see a little bit of it. So the Jones Act is the one that like forbids any ship to use American waterways unless it's like American made. Is that right?
It's more specifically to transport freight domestically between two American cities. So it's mostly applying to cargo moving out to Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, and very importantly, on the Mississippi River, we have the best navigable river network, and it's very underutilized because the ships that have to be made in America and therefore like really and crewed by Americans, and they end up being very expensive as a result of that Made in America clause. So I'm pretty anti these things. I'm like a libertarian at heart, although not a stupid one. So there's plenty of reasons why the government needs to intervene and be involved in the economy. But Jones Act seems like it has not achieved its goal. Is the main thing. The goal was noble. It was like to promote American shipbuilding. But here we are. We didn't build any container ships last year as a country, so it doesn't work. Let's try something different next.
Yeah, I guess it's like the Jones Act is kind of the end result of these tariffs. It's like we not only don't build the thing, we also just don't have the thing.
Yes,
which is like the worst case scenario.
And the people who should be up in arms about the Jones Act are Hawaii, Alaska. Hawaii pays like so much for everything, and part of the reason everything's so expensive in Hawaii is the Jones Act. It costs like I haven't checked the prices lately. We don't do a lot of Hawaii shipping, but I mean, it was like 20 times more to ship a container from California to Hawaii than from California to China.
Wow, that's crazy.
I don't spend you might not spend a lot of time on Google Earth like me, but China's past
on the way.
Hawaii. Yes.
Yeah. Should be half the price. So Ryan, you left to be a VC for, I guess, a couple of years, and then you came back?
No, a couple of months, really. I mean...
Oh, really? Was it that short? I kind of...
It was short. Six months stint, 6 months as executive chairman, and then back as CEO. And of that 6 months, I'm still moonlighting.
So did you do any deals as a VC in the 6 months?
I didn't lead any deals. I helped Founders Fund on a few things. I was there when we did the Neuralink deal, which was really proud to be part of that. It was really exciting. They didn't need my help, but I was definitely an advocate that if you don't fund this kind of stuff, like what are we even doing as Founders Fund?
How did you?
They didn't need me to say that. They all got it.
Yeah.
How did you kind of transform as a CEO in that time period?
Well, I made a lot of changes when I came back to myself personally. Yeah. First off, the VC experience actually did help me. One of the things I did, because I'm not a professional investor, I've done a ton of startup investments, but one of the not a professional investor by any means. So I read every book I could on investing, and for the whole time I was there, I was just reading books about investing and trying to be really good. That gave me a good perspective of Flexport from an investor's perspective. Like what is the return on invested capital? How do we think about capital efficiency? A lot of the metrics that an investor would look at, and start wearing that hat was really helpful. I'm also an investor in a small business that is quite profitable and can't grow. And so it's like a hotel. And so it's very interesting to be part of that, because that's just a simple constraint to apply to your business. Like, it can't grow the number of people that stay there a night. But it could grow its revenue only if and it makes money. So you're like, I'd like to have that money myself. But if you could make the case that investing in these new curtains will allow me to charge more, like, I would be open to that. And you take that constraint of growth. No one should do that in startup world, but we're so used to like, oh, I can always invest more for more growth. But if you take that away, then you start thinking much more about return on invested capital in a sensible way. So that was pretty helpful for us of like, what are the things that are going to allow us to charge more for our service, not just get more customers, which has always been our thing. Get more customers, more volume.
When did you buy this hotel?
I didn't buy it. I'm just a small investor in it a few years ago.
But I think a normal business is actually like quite a good way to learn startup land. Like, towards the end of HeyZap, we were profitable in my previous company, and we had we just didn't have that much money or anything. So it just completely changes your mindset, where you're like, okay, how do you make the cash cycle quicker? Like, how do you get the invoices paid? Like, there's so many factors that I think like a high growth startup doesn't have to think about.
And startups, especially like compound startups where you just have so many different products, it's just like there's always new things that you can invest in. It's hard applying that constraint of like, well, what's going to let me really charging more is the easiest way to make money, but you can't just charge more. Customers will leave. So how do you create more value that people are willing to pay for? But the main ways I changed at Flexport was like, well, the market, and we're related to being an investor at all. It was just coming back and realizing you got to go into much more hardcore mode. So I I think I was doing the biggest mistake I had over the last decade. A lot of startups founders make is hiring senior execs and then just like kind of trusting them and managing through them instead of going, okay, hire them, but I still own this problem, and skip levels, involve them if you need to, but just go straight to the front line, talk to everybody, ignore the org chart way more. So if you were to look at my Slack, I probably talk to 60 or 70 people a day, and they're different every day. A lot of the same.
So you're
people
founder mode. You're a true founder mode.
Full on. And I was in that mode before I was there that day Chesky gave that talk. So, but I was there, I was in that, but I wrote down 4 pages of notes because I was like, yes.
Yeah. I feel like most good founders had discovered they need to be in founder mode before Chesky gave that talk, but I think it was good to like have it described.
Yeah, you put it in simple
Did you actually
words.
change anything that you did after that talk? Like,
I made 2 big changes that were more high-level strategic stuff that we did. That were 3 changes. We had the first was we had a design org that was like per product. There was a designer, and we changed it to be like, let's have a design flow across all the things and think about the user experience. Make sure you don't ship your org chart. Like have a design that's end-to-end.
Consistency and stuff.
Yeah. 2 was we actually did this leadership summit, and we're such a globally distributed company that it's hard to get everybody on the same page. So I brought 100. Now I'm doing this twice a year. Brought 150 people from our leadership team together for like 3 days of review the strategy, review the product roadmap, go through all the different product areas, like get everybody informed about. Everybody meets each other. That just drove insane engagement and culture upgrade and problem solving and relationships that people are calling each other now. They know each other much better. And that was just like me. I got it from Chesky, but I'd been craving this because he recognized I don't know everything, but I have so much more access to information is the way to say that than the team does. And I just kind of take that for granted until you realize like I'm in all these business reviews, but even my other executives don't join all of those reviews. So they don't see everything. No one else can see it. So how do you bring that information to more people? And then the third thing that Chesky told me to do that he got a lot of this from Apple, by the way. I don't know if that was in Paul Graham's post, but he got access to like how Steve Jobs ran Apple and like cloned it for Airbnb.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And the third one is the twice annual tech release all at once, bundle all your software, all your new products, and launch it. And we did that in February. We launched like 20 new AI products, and just kind of in our industry where it's kind of glacial pace, nothing much changes. We were able to make a huge splash all at once, get attention on our
So
tech.
if something is ready before that 6-month time period, like do you actually pause it, or is the thing like you're shipping all the time? But
a fair
like,
amount of that
creates a
stuff
timeline?
was stuff that had soft launch and beta. People were using it, and you just didn't really talk about it and do any kind of announcement.
That makes sense.
But
yeah.
but a lot of it was stuff that we shipped Sunday night, the night before the release, like working the weekend. So there was a huge amount of benefit to doing that. And one was, deadlines are super powerful. You need them, especially in tech org, where it can kind of linger. And then 2, the coordination we got from our marketing team and the engineering teams to actually know what we're building, why we're building it, help them tell a story. Where before we would just, we built the thing, and then marketing would be like, what is this thing that we built? And like never get their head around it to launch. So they started partnering 3 months earlier in the cycle and, seeing what was coming. So
one of the interesting piece of advice I heard about that was like, you actually write the press release for the product on inception. Like that's marketing is in the room when you actually start designing the product.
Well, that's like an Amazon thing. It's called like
that's an
working
Amazon
backwards.
Yeah, PRFAQ. We do those. Some of our teams do that. We have pockets, like we have a lot of Amazon people, so we haven't made that a consistent requirement for every team. But yeah,
I think it depends exactly what it is and whether it works. Maybe we're talking about San Francisco a little bit, just to go from like super global to super local. I feel like San Francisco has improved a lot. Ryan and I both live somewhat close together, but I saw you tweet about like a startup that you're involved in, Room, can't sell these kind of phone booths inside San Francisco now.
Room sold, so I'm not sure. It's not actually coming from Room. They might still be selling. I'm not sure. I'm not involved anymore. But no, that was my friend's startup got shaken down by the fire department and made them rip out all their phone booths. And apparently it's been happening. Once I tweeted about it, like some commercial real estate broker has been, the last 2 years, the fire department's been going door to door and offices and telling
these are
startups.
like small booths. Like what is the fire risk here?
I'm sure it's some fire code that says if you have a room that you need to have a sprinkler. And these things are rooms. It's a phone booth. But it's just kind of ridiculous. I will say the mayor was super receptive. I met the mayor not that long ago, and I texted him my tweet, and he replied, "I'm on it." And then he called me this morning. Speaking of being able to get, I missed his call, so hopefully he's fixing it. I don't know.
But that's great that he's on top of it.
I'm optimistic about the mayor. I haven't been all in on him yet because he's saying all the right things, but starting to see that there's some action doing the right things.
London Breed also said all the previous mayor.
That's why I'm not getting excited until I see more action. But he started to, there's been some cleanup of all the crime that you see in the street that we seem to accept. It's very funny. All these crimes are illegal because the people voted to make them illegal. And then just not enforcing it is very anti-democratic. If something is illegal, the government needs to.
I think 90%
laws.
of people plus agreed with what the action plan was. It was just not being implemented.
Yeah. So I'm bullish. I'm bullish because of the AI boom that's happening here. And we seem to have some, and not just the mayor, the board of supervisors, which is our city council, we know it no longer has a communist majority. It's now a liberal majority instead of communist. So that's a step in the right direction towards some better policies for the city. So
you said you launched 20 AI products. Is a lot of them kind of smaller things that are like back office, or does it substantially kind of change your business?
Some of both. Yeah. Some really cool front customer-facing reporting. So, one of the main things you need from your supply chain is accurate data. Where's my, what have I spent money on? What have I shipped? What are all the different ways you can group that data? It's been very hard to generate those reports. Our team spends we estimate our team spends 25% of their time. The customer-facing team spend 25% of their time generating custom reports for customers. And now we built this AI natural language querying chatbot, basically, that you ask questions, it generates graphs, reports, CSV downloads, anything you want. It's super easy to use. Anyone can do that. So that's probably the most powerful customer facing one. We're automating just tons of stuff right now. We see around of all the work. So the way Flexport works is you're end-to-end logistics provider, right? And so you have a shipment that's moving across the world. There's all this manual work that has to be done. And so we've structured that manual work over the last decade into workflow software. And now we're automating about 1% of the structured work every week. It's pretty crazy. And a lot of that's because of AI. It's been so much easier to extract data from documents and contracts.
Is it just your existing teams that are trying to incorporate this, or is that a new team that's automate workflows team?
It's pretty much the existing team. Everybody's using it rather than having an AI team.
Yeah.
We don't have a strategy team, the same as we don't really have an AI, because it's applying other people's AI. So we don't really need any engineer can do this. You don't need cutting edge AI engineers.
Did you guys see Toby's memo, the AI memo? It came out earlier this week. You basically said there's a very high threshold for hiring anyone else. You have to prove that AI cannot do the task or something.
Yeah, that was cool. I immediately submitted it to AI and had it rewrite it as if I wrote the memo. So I can send it to my employees.
You summarized it. Nice. Lots of companies have done this. I think Block had a thing where they were we will not hire anyone. AI will kind of drive
Klarna,
it.
most famously. Klarna,
obviously. Yeah. They went even further. They fired people.
No, actually, they didn't do that much firing. They just didn't hire. They just stopped backfilling anybody.
Yeah, I think it's surprising how much efficiency it gives you in random places. We have a corp dev guy who helped with this kind of fundraise we just did. We raised 300 million, and he's the only person who was kind of leading it from finance. And he said he spent 70% of his time in ChatGPT, just coming up with writing all the SQL and answering helping phrase all the diligence questions. And he said otherwise we probably would have had to hire 1 or 2 extra people underneath him.
Interesting.
Which is I was oh shit, I didn't expect that's a random place to be efficient.
Last night I asked 20 of our salespeople what a series of questions of what are your biggest blockers for closing deals, and then I took all of their answers and I put that into Notebook LM. and summarized it, and it got like 6 paragraphs, and I sent it to the sales leadership team and go, hey guys, these are the things that you need to do to accelerate the pipeline. Like super simple, you know? I mean, the hard part was getting them to trust me to tell me what the problems are, but
yeah. I mean, I think that's the tricky thing with this tariff stuff, right? Like everything was kind of humming along. Like, I feel like we could just like, as you said, like punt it for a year or two. Maybe we get like 5 or 6% GDP growth. Like
Flexport was on track. We were going to end this year at $100 million in EBIT and just take over the world. And now we're like, all right, time to
Yeah, I was feeling great. I mean, Mercury had a great, like 2024 was like VC funding was back. I was like, okay, you know, it's like we're feeling pretty good. And then it's like, bang. Hopefully it work out. I guess like one question that did come up and like I don't know what the answer is. Like, you know, could this just be a temporary thing, right? Like if we remove these tariffs or reduce them down, like we just all go back to normal and the world just keeps working? Or is there like some level of like permanent damage to either this like trade routes or government relations? Like, is this like a one-way door or a two-way
business
door?
confidence.
Or confidence, yeah.
It could go back to normal. I don't think that's likely to happen. I just don't think that the Trump administration, China are going to get along. But hey, you know what? Let's pray. I think it's possible. It's, you know.
I mean, people kept saying Trump loves Xi and like they'll figure it out, and like now it's all like.
Well, he's famous for 180s, right? He's famous for like the TikTok 180 and stuff like that. So like he's capable of it, but I'm less worried about him and more worried about confidence in America and like people wanting to do business with us, and people have relatively short memories in today's world. So I hope that people 6 months after things calm down, it will be better, but it's going to take a while. What advice do you...
We have to remember we're in the middle of a mimetic storm right now, and everybody thinks this is the biggest deal on planet Earth, but humans do move on. Like that thing you just said is totally true. In 3 months, it'll be something else. So,
yep. Yeah, we're very good. We're very adaptable species. So, but one question I have for you, both of you guys are very involved in the capital markets. For founders who are thinking of raising venture dollars or like raising money, like how should they think about these things? Should they just like batten down the hatches, plan to,
Yeah, I mean, I would. The mimetic storm is a great phrase for it. I think I would. It depends what stage you are at. Actually, I think the seed stage founders, like probably nothing has changed. I think if you're like A or B, like VCs are probably like, they're not saying like, hey, let me deploy some extra money. They're saying like, okay, let's just wait. And like, Ryan said, like everyone wants to like wait and see. Especially if you're at all like, if you're selling something that you're importing, like forget it. I think if it's like pure software and AI related.
Those guys weren't raising any venture capital for a long time. So I mean, generally the advice for all founders thinking about fundraising is just don't do it. It's the worst thing for your life. If you have any option at all, don't do it. Like it's very risky. I mean, if you try to go fundraise and it fails, you're just like, oh, your company's now dead. Like, it's like, it's a pretty risky proposition. So you better be in a really strong point where you're like, have a very high confidence that this is going to work. Otherwise, cut some costs, focus on your customers, try to grow, like get the thing profitable however you can. But that's generic advice. And the other thing is you shouldn't listen to generic advice because your business much better than I do, certainly on a podcast, So.
I mean, I'll also say actually like, the last 3 months, like 2025 has been an insane AI hype cycle when it comes to fundraising. Like these seed stage companies are like, like with very little going for them at like 40 million plus valuations. So it's not clear to me, like, does this just reset a little bit to like something slightly more reasonable or does it go under? Like, I think like if you're within the envelope, like AI agent something, like if you're in the hype cycle still, I think you're probably
what's amazing is, with this, we're going through a bit of a crisis in our industry, obviously. And I dusted off this old document that I wrote about how to win in a downturn. And I sent this to my team. And it's like this elaborate, it was great because I'm like, I'm not just writing this now. I'd like written this. But I wrote it in 2019 and I was like, we're about to go through a downturn like no one's ever seen it. I'm like, wait, what was I even talking about? Was there a downturn? I don't remember that. And so, it's like, the world's going to come and go and change a lot. And like, you got to figure out what's going to be true no matter what. And for sure, that's going to be like lower costs is going to be good for you. So,
just build a good business.
Yeah.
Ryan, this was amazing. Thanks for coming on. We'll launch it and hopefully it'll still be interesting to people and not outdated. But have a good day.
Likewise, man. I'll see you around for CDO.
See you, Rad. Good to see you again.
Well, see you all next week. And don't forget to leave us a review, subscribe, and do all that.
And I recommend following Ryan on other socials too. He has very interesting posts and you can learn a lot about trade and stuff.